I'm Tim Herrera with the Sacramento County Office of Education, here with another Teacher of the Year profile for 2010. And joining us here is Robyn Cox, who is one of 2 Teachers of the Year for the San Juan Unified School District. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Well, tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us where you teach. Tell us what you teach.
I'm a math teacher at Rio Americano High School in the San Juan District.
Okay. And how long have you been teaching math?
This will be my 8th year. I taught for 1 year in San Francisco, and then I left public education for a while, and now I'm back. Was at Will Rogers for a few minutes, a semester, and now I've been at Rio pretty much full time.
Okay, so what type of math do you teach? Are you an algebra teacher? Are you?
Yes.
Are you? Okay.
There are. I usually teach 3 subjects a year. This year I have Algebra 1A, which is the first half of Algebra 1, Algebra 2, which is college prep algebra, and then Transition to Algebra 2, which is a curriculum that we're building at Rio to try to help kids get a pretty solid skill set algebra-wise before they move into Algebra 2.
Okay. So it sounds like you were out of teaching for a while, then you came back. Is that correct?
That's true.
So
That's true.
How long of a span of time was it in between?
It was about 30 years.
So a few weeks.
A few weeks.
So in that amount of time, what are some of the big changes that you had seen in education from when you left to when you came back?
Well, in that time, we had 2 kids of our own who went through the public education system. When my oldest was starting school, it was when populations were shrinking, and so she was in a combined classroom, a K-1-2, and I thought that was really an interesting way to grow. She is currently a vice principal at Carnegie Middle School, so public education works great. Her younger sister was also in combined classrooms and didn't find that quite as thriving for her, but she is currently a computer media student government teacher at Sylvan Middle School. So I'm a fan of the public school system.
But from your period of time, from when you left education and came back into the classroom, what kind of changes did you see as a teacher?
When I started teaching, I kind of fell into a job that had, because they were splitting classes based on ability level. So all the hot kids were in one class, all the slow kids were in one class, and you didn't have this, span that we see in classrooms now. I think that was probably the biggest one. Also, when I started teaching is when they were starting with the pod concept, where they're the classrooms with no walls. And we're just not seeing so much of that anymore. Sometimes it feels like there's no walls, but usually you're in a contained classroom with too many kids, but that's the way it goes.
Yes. Sometimes it's like that
Sometimes
because of the population.
Like that.
So what are some of the challenges you see now, you see yourself facing as a teacher?
I think the class sizes are just huge. It feels like class size is a big challenge. When you have 36 kids in a classroom, you have 36 ability levels, but because we aren't grouping kids, I think that's better for the kids, and I think it's probably harder for the teacher. If you know how to use student tutors, then you get some help in the classroom. Otherwise, you're kind of just one teacher and a lot of kids. That's a huge challenge. I think that we're pushing kids earlier to be academically skilled, without giving them time to build the skill or let their brains grow up, or it feels like sometimes, Tim, it's on somebody else's agenda. And if we could give kids the time to grow into themselves and their abilities, I think their academic successes would be greater.
You think too much pressure on the kids, too much expectation?
Too early. I really do.
Yeah.
I really do.
So in all that time that you were out of teaching and then you came back, there must have been a real great feeling of energy for you when you kind of came back into the classroom.
It was wonderful. I did work with industrially injured adults in how do you get back to work in a job that your body can handle. That was my primary focus. I got a master's degree in counseling so that when I went back to the classroom, which I figured I would always do sometime, I'd be able to help kids with their problems in the classroom instead of having to send them out. I am a big problem solver. I think that's pretty much what I tell kids when they come into my classroom. That's why they're there. If they get a little math, that's fabulous, but they're really there to learn how to solve problems. And I went to law school before I came back into public education. So one of my joys at Rio is to be able to work with a mock trial team. I'm the teacher coach with them. And I get to meet kids that I don't meet in my classes, but they are definitely, citizens of the community, contributing, and wonderful kids. So I love that part too.
So you're able to tie everything together.
I'm working on it. Yeah. I'm working on it.
So you're talking about having 36 kids in a class sometimes, and how do you deal with kind of motivating those kids who feel like they're a little behind the others and they're struggling? What do you do?
First and foremost, I think, is mutual respect, one human being to another, as unlimited support as I can possibly give, and then realizing I can't do it all. So I try to, with classes of 36, I do a lot of small group work where I intentionally put 2 what I call hotties with 2 maybe slower kids, so that, because kids teach each other just wonderfully well. So if I can build those little small family groups where they trust each other and they'll communicate regularly, that's one of the ways to make it work. I can also pick out a hottie or 2 that gets it, and once they get it, they can become an in-class, like a tutor. So I can split the class up into 3 groups of 12 as opposed to 1 group of 36, and use kids to help other kids.
That's really helpful for the students, because the parents at home, and I can speak on this personally, you reach a certain point where you forget your algebra, and it's hard to help out. So
Kids are great.
That helps. That's a big impact.
Kids are great.
So what inspired you to not only become a teacher, but to come back to teaching?
When we moved to Sacramento, I have the honest blessing of living on an acre of land that contains 2 homes, and my husband of 41 years, and I live in one house, and my oldest daughter and her husband and her 2 boys live in the other house. My oldest grandson will be a freshman this year. My youngest will be in 6th grade, and so I regularly tutor with those kids and their friends, and I love the energy that comes out of a classroom. So I think that, and I'm high energy, my kids are high energy. It felt like the right place to be, and it's the opportunity to give back. If I could still be in school, I'd be in school. I love school. I loved law school. I love my counseling program. And I think that's a gift that I like to share. So I think when kids see that you like to learn so much, it makes it a more comfortable environment to be okay to learn in.
So what was your reaction when you found out you were one of the Teachers of the Year for the San Juan
I was
District?
so excited.
How did you find out?
I was nominated by my principal, and we went to a gathering, and then I wrote a couple of essays and had an interview, and the afternoon after the interview, the personnel director called and said I had been selected as one of 2, and I was very happy. I was really excited. The response from my family was fabulous. And it happened after school was out, but I had a number of emails from friends who said, "Wait, that's great, way to go." So I'm thrilled. I'm just thrilled.
Oh, well, congratulations on that. My final question would be that there are a lot of people out there who are considering teaching as a profession. What would you say to convince them that they should really strongly consider going into the classroom?
I think that the understanding that education is a 2-way street, and if you are still open and up to keep growing, then the classroom is a perfect place for you. You can, the give and the take, I think, happens in very few other places, and it certainly is a way to stay enthusiastic and empowered and excited about life. You see things that make you grateful, that make you concerned. You get to laugh and cry every day. It's just a fabulous place to be. I would highly recommend it for anybody to consider.
Okay, well, congratulations to Robyn Cox, one
Thanks,
of
Tim.
2 Teachers of the Year for the San Juan Unified School District. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.